But what if I want to basically automate that and apply some tests whenever I create a pull request. In this example, both creation of the pull request and acceptance of the pull request happen by me. But real world doesn't happen. You create the pull request, someone else will accept that and will let you get in. But imagine in real settings, whenever you create a pull request, you want to make sure a couple of tests happen behind the scene. Therefore, the person who reviews and accepts that believes and basically checks the results of the test that happen automatically after the pull request submission. Once it is done, they can only check those results, and based on that, they will accept whether your pull request should be accepted or rejected. That's the thing that I explained is basically the concept of CI pipeline or continuous integration. So in order to basically do that, please follow this with me. Go to dev.azure.com. If you have other CI/CD engines, you can use that. It will basically be this very similar experience. So when you go to the dev.azure.com, it will basically ask you to log in, of course. You provide your Azure free credit that you created. Is there anyone who forgot to create the Azure credit or didn't check that? No one? Good. Can I take it like in 10 minutes? Yeah, because I want to finish this one and then break. Awesome. So when you go to the dev.azure.com, I want to create a new project. Again, the steps are provided within the deck, but also like you can search. There are so many examples of how you can do that. I want to create a public project within my Azure DevOps and call it test in class. And don't change anything and hit create. Okay. So now, once I'm in the portal, I need to go to the pipelines here, and I hit build. We have two types of pipelines. One is the build pipeline, and one is the release pipeline. Again, before we go there, I'll explain here what does that mean. So we want to actually do the CI, build a CI pipeline or continuous integration. And what it does, it will run automated tests every time we merge or send a pull request to a particular target branch within my remote repository. There are a number of tests we can think of. That's the focus of day 2. We'll work on how to basically build tests for software engineering focus and also machine learning focus. Hopefully we can target all of them. But this is like the steps that you can basically follow to create it. But it is important to know that there are two main pipelines. One is the build pipeline, the other the release. The build focuses on the CI part, or it means you want to check whether your changes to the code breaks anything within the bigger branch, like the master branch or the development branch. That's really important because you don't want to have someone manually checks the code every time. You want to be able to have that automated so you can trust that automated test results, so you can let in that changes happen within your main branch, which is the master branch sometimes, or development branch. So when you get here, you need to click on the build. So hit new build. So once you're in this page, select use classic editor. Otherwise, you have to write YAML code, which you don't like it. And here you will be able to pick a source repository. So because my code exists within GitHub, I will basically connect this to my GitHub account. And it requires me to authenticate myself. because I already previously authenticated myself, I don't need to do that. So you probably need to like let this connect with your GitHub accounts. Then you will pick your repository. So let me see, what was my repository name? Okay, GitHub course class. Okay, so I picked this one. And I pick the master. So I want to focus on the master for now, but you can, of course, change it to anything else. Like there are other branches here too, but I want to focus on the master. So it means that I want to be sensitive to the master. In other words, you can create different pipelines for different branches you have, and different types of tests you can run for different pipelines. So once you create next, you're able to basically pick a template. So here, because we are writing Python code, I want to pick a Python package template and hit apply. So there are like all sorts of different types of languages. And then you just and run use this and also okay. So here my branch is selected, and yeah. So these are yes, please. Awesome. So here are some of the steps that I want the pipeline to basically follow to make sure my code runs perfectly fine and is correct. So first of all, I want to basically check multiple Python runtimes. So here, I see that actually is referring to a Python.version. Every time you see this, it means there's a variable. So you need to change that. You need to go to the variables here. So right now, it checks 2.7, 3.5, 3.6. To make it shorter, I only select one of them. I want to test my code against Python runtime 3.7. And then the next step is to install some dependencies. So what it does, it first installs pip and then installs everything that I provided within my requirements.txt. So within requirements, you can provide all of the packages that you have, and then it will install them on that Ubuntu machine that I actually selected. So the Flask is disabled because it is not a web application. We can also keep it disabled. There's no problem. Now we get to the cool part, which is the PyTest. So within PyTest, I'm actually using PyTest framework. This is one way of testing Python. There are many other types of test frameworks too. PyTest is one of them. So what I want to do within the PyTest step is to basically install PyTest first, and then once installed, I want to run PyTest for everything which is on their test folder. So I need to create a test folder within my application, and under that, I can have multiple .py files, and within that, I can have multiple test scenarios. And it will test all of them as I wish, and then once all of them are done, it would publish it to this XML file. Again, I don't need to touch anything. Everything is pre, and most of the times that's good enough. Then that's the published test result. So if you remember, there was an XML file which was generated. Now it will be published within DevOps, Azure DevOps, that I can basically see how many tests were successful, how many tests were failure, or I can just move it to like a Jenkins environment or other places if it wants. Yes, please.
Can you just recap what we went through? Because I honestly got lost. So we are in Azure development, Azure working environment, and we are creating pipeline, right? So we choose some what was it, Python pipeline?
Yeah. So let me. So where you were lost?
What's the last thing you remember?
Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
Do you see this? Do you see this UI?
Yes, I see that.
Okay. So the only thing you need to change so far, going to the variables.
So did we create an empty pipeline, or did we
So-
take a template?
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to pick a template, and you said you have picked the Python template, right? So when you pick the Python template, you will see this UI, right?
So this is a template, right?
Yeah, this is a template.
Okay,
yeah.
so
Which you can keep most of the part as is. You'll change only smart changes, and if you let me post it here.
and what is the objective of this procedure? So it's testing some code we deployed or pushed to our GitHub,
Exactly.
whether it works. Right?
Exactly.
Continuous integration, right? So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so again, going back to here, going back to here, so the objective of the CI pipeline, if you see here, is to have automated tests for every new feature. So whenever we have a merge happening here, we want to make sure that a couple of tests happen. So all of the modification we made in the feature, when we bring it back to the master branch, doesn't break anything else. So that's really the automated, that's basically the ultimate goal of CI pipeline. And the tests can be very simple to very complicated tests, right? But we want to basically make it automated. And in order to make it automated, we need to have somewhere to run our tests. So we can pick our local computer to test them, or we can pick a test and basically pipeline engine or hosted environment to do that. We're using Azure DevOps to run these tests because it will give us some free environment to basically run our tests on like Python or other kind of runtime environments and all types of machines. And that's basically the objective of doing that. So we want to basically program a hosted environment to run our tests within their computers with a new modification to tell me that whether my changes were successful or not. Yes, please.
So maybe a stupid question.
No problem.
So in the code repository, when I fork something, create a branch, I'm not copying the entire code repository, right? This is a single file within the repository.
So when you do the fork, you will copy the entire source repository.
So what if someone else forked at the same time that I did and they're changing different?
That's fine. So again, this is decentralized, right? Okay. So you will have just clones of the same code within your local computers. You both work, and when you merge it back, if there is a conflict, there is a merge conflict concept, which we didn't want to go through that because that would be
But it is everything.
yeah, it is everything. Yeah. Yes, please.
And within the bigger picture, what are we discussing right now is the classical part of DevOps. It is not specific to machine learning. It is how they...
Exactly. Yeah. It is not specific to machine learning. That's part of the CI pipeline from the CI/CD, basically. Yeah. Yeah.
The interface on the website looks very different. Like I cannot select the operating system.
Well, I
Because
think
the
you
template-
have. Yeah. I think you selected the. Did you select the classical editor instead of the? Do you remember you have selected something like that?
So it goes to builds, right? And I say new build.
So yeah. So click on the build. So let me go back to here. So you see here, right? Up to here is the same UI.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So when I click new build, I'm basically, so you have to click on this classic editor, and that's very important. Because if you don't do that again, you have to write YAML code, which you don't like it. Yeah. Awesome. So going back to this, again, for those who are just joined us, we basically changed these variables, Florian. So we need to change basically this variable to only Python, only one of the versions, not all of the versions here. And then going back to the tasks, I want to basically, I explained like this is like just only the picking a particular Python runtime, installation of some of the dependencies, and then running the tests. The running the tests, I was referring to this code. This is again like a shell script that I'm running on that Ubuntu machine that I selected. So what it does, again, it pip installs the Python PyTest and then runs PyTest for the folder tests here. So what it means if you have any kind of .py file within the test folder, it will pick them up and it treats everything there as test cases. And will make sure everything passes success. I will show you how that looks like basically in a second. Yes, please.
The runtime environment, it is just provided somehow as a black box. It's not our virtual machine to which we connect.
Yeah, it is a test environment. It will be created on demand and it will be disposed on demand, basically. That's why it's free. It's only used for testing your scenario, whether it works or not. That's it, yeah.
Tests like basically in the same home directory as your main.
You can have basically multiple folders here, and
Yeah.
within that again you can have multiple basically .py files,
Okay.
which each of them can be for one feature, and within that you can have multiple unit tests.
Right.
Yeah.
But then in terms of the directory, it's in the same level as your main, right?
Yeah, exactly. And again, you can have like multiple steps, like PyTest 1, PyTest 2, PyTest 3, so you can have multiple of them. And whenever you just install something, the next step you don't have to install it again because all of them are running on the same machine within the same environment. Basically, you don't need to do that. And final step is to basically publish everything back to the Azure DevOps. So it means that I can see all of the results of the tests, that how things were successful or failed. Something very important here is if you don't do that, if you fail, it doesn't publish the results. Go to the control options, and within the control options, click on even if previous task failed, even if the build was canceled. Make sure you select this one, otherwise it will not publish the test if it fails. Control options within the publish test results, click on this one. So let me post. I'm pasting the deck here. Within the deck, the steps are there. So if you're lost, you can basically go there and then follow the steps from there.